Yeah, Women Matters. Today is the 24th of March in 2025. And we are talking about human nature because we were so much, how do you say, in wonder why the whole world couldn't agree on one day when to switch the time into legal time and so on, because this is a problem. Today, Haneli and Victoria, they came an hour earlier because in America it's already changed. In South Africa, it's always the same, but you don't know how to orient yourself. And Europe hasn't changed yet, but next Sunday will be changed. So, and Victoria had a good proposal to say that, yeah, she will tell you later. Let's do the little check-in. And Monia, you were talking about your 60s matrimonium, no?
We celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary in June, and we are thank you. We are preparing a festive meal, luncheon, of course, because we don't like to eat it in the evening much. And and we just got from the hotel that the date is possible, so everything is fine. And now I'm starting to relax because it's rather difficult to really arrange things because they want to give you so much information beforehand that we didn't really feel like doing it, and then they don't respond, etc. So I'm sort of relaxed and tired because I had a massage that was rather hurtful but necessary, and on my leg for the first time. And so I'm sort of relaxing, and I'm give over to Haneli.
Thank you, Monia. I'm here in Cape Town, and yes, I'm still in awe. I've been listening to the telepathy tapes. You can listen to it on YouTube or on Spotify. It's amazing. It's about how parents with autistic children and neurodivergent children, but mostly autistic children, how they communicate via telepathy. It's incredible. It's just amazing. And obviously it's not only them that can communicate that way, but it's just amazing how that happens. And yeah, so I'm still in that awe of it all because it's so touching, and the stories are just amazing. How parents struggled, especially like 10, 20, 30 years ago. And you're talking about human nature, yes. It's exactly that. And now there are other ways that we can communicate and be together than the ones that we think. And if you listen to those stories, some are heartbreaking, but in the end, it's just so beautiful when they discover that we can communicate in this way. So I'm still in that. And I'm passing you to you, Victoria.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to relay Beatrice's greetings because of the time change. Because I sent her a reminder message this morning, but of course I was thinking it was an hour earlier, and she was all excited to come to join, and then Haneli and I discovered that we had made this mistake. So Beatrice, unfortunately, she already has to be at work. So, but she sent her love, and maybe next time, although she'll be in the middle of production next time, I think, on a brand new ballet. So. Yeah, I don't know what to check in. I'm trying to find some kind of new life purpose. Because every time I think of something, I get pushed back. And so it's a process of discernment, because I want to do something with all the knowledge and skills I've acquired, but unfortunately nobody seems terribly interested in whatever I have to contribute. So that's so I'm kind of in a strange space right now, trying to discern what my next step should be and how to proceed. and otherwise trying to just live in the moment, because otherwise it's too discouraging. So I think that's enough of my check-in. Over to you, Heidi.
Yeah, thank you. You were talking again about human nature, no? That we want to pass on what we have learned. And there were times in which it was very welcome that the elders were teaching the youngest. That seems to be a little lost, at least in our areas, but I don't think that's the last word said on that. So my check-in, yeah, I'm quite okay. Looking forward to more spring and to Easter. Some people coming in from Germany, and you know, so I started a course with Bettina Wiches. I don't know, Monia, you will know her, about consciously aging. And that's really good course. She, in the first lesson last week, she gave us our chart of human design and of gene keys. And I was sort of blown away, because I thought, yeah, the shade and the gift and the destination and everything which is written down, it's all fitting to me. And I can say, yes, that's it. And there's also the question, what can we and how can we give away what we have learned, but also what we are, you know? So I'm curious how it goes on. So that's human nature. And you said, Victoria, that's why we decided to use this topic. You told the story from Australia. We were still talking about the time change problems, and you told us this little story. Do you want to take over and tell us?
Oh, just that I lived in Australia for 6 years, and I was told by my friends there that, because I did a lot of rail travel while I lived there, that it took a long time for the different territories in Australia to agree on having the same gauge for the railways, that each territory had its own gauge, and every time you crossed from one territory to the next, you had to change trains because they couldn't agree on a common gauge. And just how typical that is of human nature, that that, you know, everything has to be, well, there's an expression we use here, my way or the highway. And speaking of genes, genetic makeup, I think my entire family on my mother's side is afflicted with this this idea, my way or the highway, an inability to compromise or to negotiate. Everything has to be the way that you know, one person envisions it, and if you don't agree, then you're out. There's no discussion. So I think that's why I was thinking with the time when you said, Heidi, about why can't the whole world just agree? Okay, this is, if we're going to change the time, this, I mean, even here in the United States, Arizona, which is right next to California, doesn't change its time regardless ever. So I guess like South Africa. So that gets very confusing too. I know some people who their business is in Arizona, but they live here because they want to be near the ocean. And even they, you know, after decades get mixed up, like what time is it actually? And that's just, you know, 4 hours from here. So it's, yeah, that's why I thought, yeah, you're right. It's human nature.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that a real arrogance? I had the experience, I was asking for Italian citizenship and had to fill out all these questionnaires and send the documents and everything. And they rejected it twice because something was missing. And then the website went into blockage, and I couldn't upload more than one document at the time, and all these things. And I thought, but for instance, Amazon has a website which is working. But Italy, these people always think that they can do it better. And they have always websites wherever you go where you think, it's not possible, you know. I had to struggle when I did agriturismo, no? I had to struggle so much with these websites. And in this time, I already knew about websites. I built mine my own ones, you know, and these official websites, they were ununderstandable and complicated. And so it was always my question, why can't they ask somebody who knows how these things work, you know? But the arrogance, we are the best. No? This, we from integral theory, if we know what it is, no, ethnocentrism, or even egocentrism, but in this case, ethnocentrism, because we Italians, we know, or we Germans, we know how the world, or we Americans, we know how the world needs to be, you know. So we are still there, aren't we?
Heidi, what's really fascinating, now that you say that, what's fascinating to me, last year I met, professionally I met a lady online from London. And it was like she lived in a different world, that she couldn't think that somebody from South Africa could have wisdom. I was shocked. I was completely in shock. What did she think, that we're a couple of idiots? You know, it was like, you live in the 21st century with the internet and social media and everything, and you still think there couldn't be innovators coming from this part of the world and things, or people who are wise from this part of the world. It was just fascinating. But I love what you say about gene keys, Heidi. I've been working with gene keys for 14 years now, every day.
Okay.
And it's amazing. And Victoria, if it's something if you are trying to connect with your inner purpose according to your genes, then I would recommend gene keys, and you can do your profile for free. And I'm willing to help you just to get set with it as well. It's amazing because it's, and I've done it for my daughter has done, has done some of the courses. It's not courses, it's tracks. You can say it's a track, a journey. And I've done it with many friends, and it's amazing. It's always spot on. It's who we truly are. It's not something that's thumbsucked, you know. If you really go and look at it and you begin to work with it, you can just read the book as well if you want to. But I mean, it's you do your profile, it's amazing. And it's a guideline. It's not the thing, but it's a guideline. It gives you direction. And like Heidi said, our wounded parts, our shadow parts, the stuff that we have to work on in terms of our relationships, in terms of being abundant, in terms of just living sharing our life's work with the world. What are we here for? To share with the world. It's really powerful in helping us to get our way if we are struggling to find our ways. And it comes back to human nature. It comes back to human nature, yes.
I find it also as a sort of confirmation that what I have done so far is not wrong, you know, and it went into the right direction. But coming back to that, in Africa, no, they are all primitive, you know. So we are still, I discovered in the late the years past, but even up to now, how much this colonial identity of Europe is still in us. Even in little things, you know, you think, oh no, I'm not thinking like this. And then you discover something like, oh, you know, so this almost habitual thing that we are superior, please. So it's really, really, really deep. We have lived that for 400 or 500 or even more years. I mean, before were the Romans who occupied everything, and we are not very far from Romans. So that is long habit, which has almost gone into the genes, obviously. So without noticing, you are getting into this mindset. Oh, these Black people, you know, they are. And I heard, I think it was a German psychologist, I don't remember the name, but he said, no, a doctor, when he went to India, when he did his doctorate, and he went to India and studied there too, and he was so astonished how much the English doctors knew, much more than himself. And he said that was for him a cure of this superiority, because he understood that they are, where he was at the university, maybe not everywhere, but they were much more ahead than he was in his studies. And so I think we should go more often in other countries and see what they are able to do and to be, you know, with our innate, inherited superiority feeling. And Victoria and also Monia, you are studying Buddhism, no? Isn't it that they say to leave this arrogance aside?
I just want to say something apropos of Africa before we switch gears to Buddhism. That just a minute, that's the reason I wanted to say it, was that just a minute before I logged on for this call, I was quickly checking my emails. I was looking for something specific, which I didn't find, but there was an email from someone I'd never heard of before about in Paris, a tap dance convention in July, and I don't know how she got my address, but anyway, there was a long biography. The star of this 3-day event in Paris is a woman, an African-American woman, who carries the legacy of the great Black male tap dancers of the early part of the 20th century, because she studied with them. She must be really old. I've never heard of her, but and I was thinking actually about how, and this is an interesting thing about human nature, how there's the colonialism on the one side, but on the other side, the reality is what I've realized, and like you were saying about medicine, every racial group or culture has unique gifts to contribute to the world. And so it's a matter of perspective. But now, because of this, you know, the gender, colonialism, imperialism, all these things, it's not politically correct, but everyone secretly, I think, still would acknowledge that the great, like jazz and tap dance and certain things like this, unquestionably come from Africa and come from the way the African body, human body, I mean, this is all politically incorrect what I'm saying, but I don't care because I know it's true. That the body itself, they have different kind of body, which has the ability to do these amazing things, and which we as Caucasians don't, you know, we have to study really hard and work really hard to get our bodies to comply. And I was thinking with medicine, like Chinese and Indian, you know, the Asians are way ahead in medicine, always have been. And so in terms of human nature, I was thinking, if there were more cross-fertilization and acknowledgement, especially now that we're in a global culture, realizing you have gifts that I don't have, and your culture can contribute immeasurably, instead of trying to make everybody the same, to really celebrate the differences in the positive way. Because I think there's a desire, especially now with AI, there's a desire to like flatten everything out. And you're not allowed to say, oh, you know, I'm glad to be a woman because, you know, I can give birth to a child or whatever, like whatever. It's everything has to be the same now, and no gender, no race, no anything. Like we're all just, you know, cut out of the same cookie cutter mold. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to give it over to Monia, who's been very quiet.
Yeah, I like that idea. I followed that unique gifts give you a sense of superiority, which isn't really smart, because everybody has a unique gift in her or his way. And yeah, I just remembered my school days when my unique gift gave me superiority, and everybody hated me for it. It wasn't my fault. It's just I could do that, and yeah. Anyway.
What was it?
Oh, writing and poetry, and just rhyming in a very pleasant way. And I wrote for an academy. I wrote for the paper. I wrote for the school paper and the school academy, the school performances, and it came very natural to me. It doesn't anymore, but at that time it just was in my genes, let's put it that way. And yeah, I was wondering about the gene keys, because I'm trying to remember. I once got a brief view of mine, but I don't remember it anymore. But it was, maybe I should contact that man again, because he really got deep into it. But isn't it the same like if you are claiming to be an Enneagram type, and you sort of rely on it, and this makes you feel, yeah, it's a kind of, you got certain rights and certain problems when you have a certain type. On the other hand, all of life is open for you, and you could change if you really were intent on changing. So I wonder if it's human nature that we really don't want to change much and just keep on going the way we are, being miserable because we know the crutches and we can rely on. Yeah, that was what I was just associating.
I think human nature is that we are more static. We don't want to change. We need safety, security, and that's every change is seems to make fear, you know. And so I guess evolution has taken care for that, because you have to change. It's no choice. And as far as for the gene keys, that's another typology. That's clear. Many typologies, but I enjoy knowing more of them, because everyone has a little bit a different aspect on the things, and a different view, a different perspective on your gifts and on your, let's say, problems, or places where you still have to, if you want to develop. So
I think, I mean, that really brings out an interesting question about human nature, is that if you look at these schemas, or whatever you want to call them, systems, as predestining or predetermining the outcome versus looking at them retroactively, like you were saying, Heidi, you said, oh, it's so great because I realized I did the right things with my life. Like they all are confirmed by this. I mean, I don't know anything at all about gene keys, so I'm interested in learning from Hanali. I mean, from all of you, but Hanali offered to. But I remember my late husband was constantly talking about astrology. He was an anthroposophist, actually, but he was he liked astrology too. I mean, he didn't follow it. Like, he didn't say, oh, I'm not going to go out today because my horoscope says it's not auspicious or whatever. But it just enraged my mother, because she said that's so simplistic, and so to say, oh, you were born when the moon was this or that. I don't know astrology really, but and your sign. So, but it does what Monia said, I think, raises an interesting question of it kind of depends. It's like a chicken and egg thing. Like, do we look at these various systems and signs, or the Enneagram too, but any of these categories as guideposts, or as confirmation, or as I do know people who literally are obsessive about their horoscopes, and they literally won't leave home if it says, this is not a good day for you, or they won't, invest in this or that thing, because which then I think can be very limiting. So that brings out another thing about human nature, I think, of having needing. Yeah, maybe you could call them crutches in a way, if they're, I mean, they can be used that way to also to justify things. Oh, that's what my mother couldn't stand about what Conrad used to say, because he would say, oh, well, she does that because she's a Libra or whatever. My mother would just go ballistic. She said we have free will, we have choice. She just, that enraged her. So but that's an example of like a crutch thing, like a justification.
Yeah, Victoria, I wouldn't compare it, and Monia, I wouldn't compare Gene Keys to the Enneagram. I'll tell you why. Gene Keys is based on the time that you're born, the date that you're born. So it's not just a questionnaire that you fill in and you realize, but I'm this or that. It has to do with where all the planets were, obviously, as well. It's linked to the I Ching. It's linked to so the I Ching astrology of because of the time that you're born and where you're born, and stuff like that. But it's not just like for me. I always had a dilemma with personality profiling, because you fill in a questionnaire today, tomorrow I can do it and it's different because I feel differently. And the same for me is related to the Enneagram as well. It's not because of your blueprint of how you come into the world. But what I want to share about Gene Key specifically, because I've worked with it so long, it's a guideline, Victoria. It's not, this is it. And it will not tell you, oh, you must go and be a pianist, or you must go and be a violinist. It's not going to tell you that stuff. It's about the energy behind whatever you do. So, for example, if your purpose is mine, my purpose is my wounded side, my shadow is purposelessness. I have to have I have to be purposeful in something. But my gift is totality, so I must bring my whole self to it. So my purpose is not suddenly must be a medical doctor or she must go and do that or that. I can do whatever I want to do, but I must bring my full self into it. And it's about the energy behind these things and what's keeping me from that. So what's taking me into my shadow, for example. And I also believe that we can't forever work on our shadows as well. At some stage, we must take responsibility for who we are and really live every day to the fullest, whatever that might mean. But it's a guideline. It's like any other of these systems, and they're all just different. I always explain to people, if you take numerology, you take astrology, things like Gene Keys and human design, and all these type of things, it's like you just get the view, a different view on yourself. It's not the whole picture, because we're a lot more than that. We're about so much more than that. And at some stage, the way I use it is not even according to my profile any longer for many, many years. It's just I pick a Gene Key every day to work with. So it's not even my profile. So I just intuitively call up a Gene Key, and then that day I will work with that Gene Key. And so let me give you an example of my one today that I picked intuitively is pride is the shadow. And then the gift is artfulness, to doing things in an artful way. And the super gift, the CD, is invisibility. Now, when you talk about the CDs, it's like when we're really enlightened, so to speak, when we really don't live in our shadow at all. There's no ego anymore, if I can explain it like that. But it's just a guideline. And it helps us to find, especially younger people these days, because they are so lost. It gives them a little bit of a view of themselves. And what I love about the Gene Key community itself is that there are so many young people doing it today. And it's amazing for them to have some guide. I see with my daughter as well. It just gives her a little bit of guidance. And it's because it's her own blueprint. It's not something somebody else sucked up, it's not somebody else taught her about something. She's feeling the energies herself. She's experiencing it herself. So that's all I wanted to share about that. But what I want to also bring into the discussion is recently, and I don't want to bring politics in it at all, you talk about human nature. I saw somebody wrote something recently about what's happening in the US and Europe and wherever with Russia and everything, Israel, everything. And someone said, they called up some philosopher, I can't remember who it was, who spoke about human nature, and that if we can just see the beauty in life, but we don't look at the beauty, we look at the other side. And this person wrote something related to that, and he said, humans are just cruel because of a lot of stuff that's happening in the US now. That how can people agree with certain things? It's because he said, but at human nature, at the bottom of it is cruelty. And that really made me wonder that how is it that we can think that something is okay when it's really not okay, for example.
Well, that of course, brings in the whole question of like an evolutionary mindset versus a spiritual mindset. I think that it's with human nature. I remember the first time I read the Bible and read about Noah and the flood, and God said, man, I mean, it depends on the translation, but something like the thoughts of man's heart are only evil continually. And I remember as a child even thinking, the only and the continually jumped out at me, that this absolute like condemnation of the human race, that there's only evil. And so God decided, I'm going to wipe out like, this was a big like cosmic mistake. I'm going to wipe out the human race and start over. And I remember as a child being so horrified by that. But anyway, I won't digress into like spiritual questions, but I think what, I studied evolutionary biology in college with E.O. Wilson, who was the big guru. Well, now he's even more famous than he was when he was alive for some reason. But I took a lot of courses with him because I had a sort of an extra year. And that whole idea that human nature is no different really fundamentally than it's animal nature. So there is no distinct, it's only pride, like you were saying, Hanli. It's only pride that makes us think we're better than animals, because we aren't. I mean, that's the hardcore evolutionary principle, that there's no more altruism in human nature than there is in animals. And we see a little tiny bit in animals, some random mother bear will help some orphaned baby bear or whatever. Like, I mean, it's pretty minimal. It's not a big deal. But then the question is like, what is human nature? I mean, is it in any way any different than, like, if you study primate societies, you don't see a huge difference, and yet you do. I mean, so that's where the question comes up, because there is this there is, I think, a noble side to human nature which reflects the divine, but whether or not we acknowledge it or live into that or express it is then our choice. Okay, Monia.
I read about a book review today. It was just published. I don't know the title, and it's in German anyway. It's about the last days of World War II, when everybody knew that they couldn't win, and all this cruelty, unbelievable cruelty, erupted in people, and it wasn't ordered. And that's what's really shook me up, that the bottom line of the human nature is cruelty, and that's something I really don't want to support. Maybe that's why I, for more than half of my life, after I was 30, that I devoted myself to the spiritual aspects of human nature. Yeah, but the funny, what I also remembered, as you may know, we have now finally got a government in Austria. And at first, when they had all these negotiations, they couldn't agree. Then they tried with the right-wing party, couldn't agree either, because they are used to be opposition. They don't want to govern really. And then our head of state told them to compromise and to do it for the best of the state. And all of a sudden, they could agree. Now, what happened? It's so, how do I say it in English? In German, I say peinlich. It's embarrassing, really. That all of a sudden they could compromise, and all of a sudden they could step over their shadows, and all of a sudden they just wanted the job and they wanted the money, and yeah. And this is it's human nature. It's yeah.
That's what I think is the difference between animals and humans. Humans play strange games, with their mind, distorted mindsets, and there comes the arrogance again, because we think we are special, we can, or we want more money, and so I need the job, and I want to be a minister, and if the other party is winning, then I'm out, so better I make a sort of compromise for me, not for the people in the country, but for me it's good, so I do that. This is what an animal can't do. And the cruelty of animals, what you say is a cruelty. I'm convinced that when an animal eats another one, that's not cruelty.
They don't kill each other for their benefit. That's a human.
That's a human trait.
Right.
And for me, it has to do with the mind, and the mind can be easily distorted. So what we need to do is purification of the mind. And I think
What do you think Buddhists are doing all the time, Victoria?
I'm saying it's a long, there are people who have understood that for a long time and try to work on it. But yeah, I mean, there are many more people now than maybe 50 years ago who are agreeing on this or trying to study that. But altogether, I don't think we have come very far, at least not the ones who are governing us. Yeah, I don't know where they are. Ethnocentric, egocentric, between red and blue, I would say. More red than blue sometimes, when you think what they are earning and getting money, doing all the bribery and oh dear, that's incredible. Yeah, that's human nature, obviously.
Victoria, the red and blue that Heidi is referring to is not about the US's democratic. I just want to make sure that everybody's watching. This is where I realized that.
Yeah, it's integral.
It's not about that. It's integral.
Yeah. No, I know. I just went through that that process of figuring it out, because my first reaction was, oh, what is she saying? Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, but I also resonate with what you're saying, Heidi. Animals are not cruel. It's us humans.
Well, what they've noticed in research, and that's what I was referring to with the primate societies, is that under extreme conditions, there is wanton cruelty in and not just in primates, in other animal societies too. But those are in laboratories. So like there's that famous study with rats about how all society breaks down with overcrowding and overpopulation. I forgot the name of the scientist. It wasn't Skinner. It was one that's less famous now. But and so if the living conditions are extreme, and of course that is what we have now in human population, then things start to break down in the society, because then it does become kind of survival of the fittest. So but in the wild, scientists have observed that primates, if there is a severe shortage of resources, for example, then there will be acts of wanton cruelty of like and things like rape, and I mean all kinds of things that are not normally in a healthy society or not present. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. They are exceptions by and large. But the animal world is not as, yeah, I mean, it depends on what you call cruel too. But I think it's about what you were saying. Were you saying that, Heidi? But about the mind, the way the mind, and that's, I think, what then you see in animal societies too, that if the circumstances become too stressful, then there's a kind of something happens in the mind that distorts things, and then the behavior becomes aberrant. Anyway, that's a tangent.
No, but I think it's right. The only thing is an animal cannot be deliberately cruel. Like I heard that in the war was already more or less over. Japan has asked for peace, but there was the plan to try out the atomic bombs, and so they prolonged the war to be able to throw down on civil people, you know, and they eliminated very many people. But this was premeditated,
Premeditated. Yeah.
Premeditated, yeah.
and that's what animals can't do.
Yeah.
And
Well, all of those things. I mean, it's you were saying in the beginning about pride, or Hanali was saying, now I can't forget who was saying what, but yeah, you were saying, talking about pride in the gene key context, that I think, I mean, that's what I've learned since I've studied Catholicism, because I didn't grow up in any particular religion, but it's amazing when I think about, you know, the 7 deadly sins, and look at them, you know, the way I look at the Buddhist lists, how in fact the so-called 7 deadly sins really are the culprits in like the whole distortion of human society, that you know, one or another of these things is going to get in the way of love and of justice and mercy, and you know, all the virtues, and pride's always at the top. And I've realized that no matter what you look at, it seems it always comes back to a form of pride. The actual act may seem far removed, but it seems like that. And in, I think in most of the world religions, pride is like in the stories of creation. It's always pride that causes the downfall, like the separation from the, you know, God or the divine or the good. So I would say that pride is sort of the key to understanding human nature in some way. What do you think?
I think on that level, let's connect this egotism.
Yeah, same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a semantic thing,
Yeah.
but
Well, in Austria, we have now a lawsuit that has been going on for 16 years. 16 years. And it's caused by political ambition. And it's the lawyers and it's the state, but the state is all in a certain direction. They feel they have to, they are proud of being able to really torture that one politician, because he's handsome, he was rich, he married a very rich and beautiful woman, he had children. So they really, it's envy and pride. So it's that's a connection. And tomorrow will be the final judgment after 16 years, and it's ridiculous. It's again, it's embarrassing that our judicial system is supporting this kind of jurisdiction. And I feel there is in German we have the term Fremdschämen. So you really feel ashamed for somebody else, that they can act the way they act. And yeah, and this kind of development has been going on for quite some time. And I'm wondering how America will find its way out of this kind of predicament, but we'll see. And today I read that Putin doesn't want to absorb all of Europe. Haha. Haha. Well,
it is so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous what they are writing.
yeah.
Who wants to have Europe? The downfalling, decaying societies which we are here.
Yeah.
Who wants to have that, and the burden of what is going on here? It's absurd. I'm wondering.
there's the oh. No, I was going to say that's a perfect example of human nature. It's pride at the expense of reason. And that's what we see in all the politicians. I mean, the prominent politicians now, that it's a kind of, it's delusion. I mean, in Buddhism, you would call it delusion.
Mhm.
That greed, hatred, and delusion are the three components, and they're all present. I mean, interestingly enough, they're all together with some of these leaders, where they have, this unlimited greed of they want to acquire more and more and more, whether it's power or money or influence, or it doesn't matter. It's all greed. And hatred, because they have to have an othering, an enemy. And then delusion, because it's all absolute madness. Anyone with reason would look at the whole picture and say, this makes no sense. Like, what could, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever behind these actions and these ideas. So it's totally delusional. But they work in the perfect package. You have the greed and hatred and delusion all sort of reinforcing each other in this kind of circle.
Well, it's decades, though it's centuries, in Gaza that has been going on and on and on, and it defies any kind of reason.
Also, what we are doing here is defies any kind of reason. Yeah, still in this idea that we are superior, we are Europeans. But Europe doesn't mean anything. We are on the mercy of America, or not only on the mercy, but also on the command of America. If we want to do something, first, all Europeans, we are different. We don't really feel like a unity completely, no? But even if we did, we have no real power. I mean, it's a delusion to want to do something oneself. We have given our power away after the last World War, and we are no sovereignty anymore, Maybe before we were, I don't know, but not after that, because all our structures are, and only think about the social media. We don't have social media. We don't have Amazon in Europe or something like that. It's all America. All these things, the information, our information is owned by America. The military superiority is the control. I heard the airplanes and whatever, the weapons, they are all with American software. So America can decide that the airplanes cannot fly when they don't want. So what Europe, what do they want? They still live as if they were 200 years, 300 years ago, and the big powers of the world. They are not anymore. But still, sure, we are. We can tell Putin what he needs to do. Ha ha. For me, it's exactly an example of what you are saying about the delusion of what we think we are. And this is in the States, but that's also the people, every one of us. To a certain degree, maybe somebody is a little bit more rational, but most of us, we think we are, I don't know.
I have to share that. I have to share a few years ago, many years ago actually, I was doing Barbara Marx Hubbard's Conscious Evolution Journeys. And I remember, because I was the only South African person from Africa at that time doing these type of things, I was always alone. I was always the only one from this continent. So I had to slot in with the Europeans. And what I found very interesting at that time was my whole body cringed at this. It was not even something I thought. It was my body responded to it at the time. Is the Europeans would talk about, like, Europe is the most advanced civilization in the world. And I always cringed, and I always thought, what makes you think you are the most advanced? From what perspective? Because you have to look at a specific lens to say, and what do you base that on? But I remember I was always I didn't say anything because I was just always quiet, and I just thought, well, good for you if that's what you believe. But I'm fascinated by that you think you are, you're the most sophisticated in the world, you know the most. And then you talk about consciousness evolution. So it's already, then it's like spiritual superiority. It's something to do with that, that there's this superiority. And I recently had, and last week, my daughter and I attended a session about a woman who's doing really amazing things with children in the UK. Amazing things. They can read a book blindfolded, putting their hand on the book, and they can read the whole book for you without seeing it with their eyes. She does amazing things with them. But she was talking not about them in the session. We thought the session was going to be about that because we're really curious about that. And she was talking about different spiritual levels. And there was so much arrogance and superiority as well. So it's not just in the physical world that we find this type of egotism. It's also in spiritual communities. So it's across board, where you speak about the invisible or the visible. It was, and what I said to my daughter afterwards, we were both kind of shocked by the way she was speaking. I just said to her, I didn't experience any love. When you speak about love, somebody speak about love, you normally feel it. You can feel the love when somebody speaks it. And it was really just mental, a concept. It was not, you couldn't feel it all, love, during the whole session. And I think that at the core of it is our ability to just go back to love, because that's what the whole universe is based on. And that is unity. That's not all the separation.
Yeah, and that's why we in Europe have invented good things, developed good things, music and poetry and literature and everything, and science at the beginning. And so we are still living in this as if that was a merit and is a merit, but as if it is still reality, as if we are still continuing to be the first in developing all this arts or also scientific stuff, but we are far away from that. And we are still living as if, once we did a big thing, and now for all life is for hundreds of years, this is that's always like that. That's not. And we don't want to see that others are, let's say, catching up or even overtaking us, so.
Well, Heidi, to bring it full circle to when you were talking about the Italians and the websites and everything, and now I suddenly just now talking about this idea of like what we call it, resting on your laurels, that whatever it is you achieved in the past, and it suddenly gave me a flashback to one of our many trips when we lived in Vienna. We had to go to Italy all the time because my husband was the world authority on Italian old masters, and Raphael especially. Anyway, we flew into Rome one particular trip because we always took a taxi from the airport to the hotel, and the taxi driver, who was a real barbarian, like really, like a real taxi driver. He wasn't like sometimes in New York you get a taxi driver who has a doctorate in German literature or something, but he can't get a job. This guy was like the quintessential taxi driver. And as we were driving along, because he didn't know who we were, he didn't know that we knew Italian culture. So he was kind of waving his arm wildly while he was driving. He said, "Look at this grandeur." He said, "We are the greatest people on the planet Earth. We always have been. Look at these great ruins." And he was going on and on about ancient, the Roman Empire. And I could hardly keep from just laughing because it was so, I thought that's so typical. And actually Henry Miller, the writer, the first time I went to Greece, my mother gave me this book by Henry Miller, where he writes about the contrast between ancient Greece and modern Greece, and he exposes it. And he wrote that like in the, I don't know, in the 50s or something. But it's even more so like that, about how the modern Greeks are basically barbarians, but they also rest on the laurels of ancient Greece. And so they don't notice that like all the beaches are full of litter and the people are, they just have no manners and everything is chaotic and dirty, and no one's cares about education. Anyway, I'm rambling again, but I think that's so interesting that that's human nature too, that whatever you aggrandize whatever came from the past, the glory, the ancient glory.
To cling to what once you was great and you were great, and now you are great for all your life, and even your, something like that. That has something to do with this, I don't want to say capitalism, but with this society where, what you write, Hanneli, where you need to be the first, the bravest, the best in everything. That's just an idea of how to organize society, and that doesn't seem to be the best one. And before you were talking about being the best and so on, and it came to my mind, Ken Wilber says natural hierarchy. So everybody has something where he or she is good, and there she should take the leadership in this area and not in others. And we have the habit, or not we, but in our societies, that one is considered a leader for everything. And they have no idea of the most things. Maybe one area they know, but the rest they don't. And this is necessarily leading to disaster in my mind, So human mind, human arrogance, human nature, maybe not nature, maybe it's just a bad habit, a bad idea of how to organize life. That comes to my mind. Because I still do believe that human nature, that innately we are good if we are not distorted right away, or even in the belly, or with karma from past generations. But I do believe that there is much good if it can develop. And this is a good thing too here. Ladies, we are at the end. A little checkout maybe.
That's a lovely idea. I love your kitty there. It's just like exactly the beauty, the good, it's just, you can feel it in your cells. It's amazing. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's just try to avoid disaster and stem the flow. And in about 10 years, we will know more. See you then. I'll only be 93, so I could manage. Oh, God. Okay. Check out Victoria.
Well, I just wanted to say I really love this group, and I'm so glad. I really look forward to it, because it seems like more and more infrequently one can have a really good conversation. People are so focused on just, the material things. I really treasure this group, that we actually, I just have to like bone up on my integral theory. I kind of came in under false pretense. That's my checkout.
Yeah, and what would I say? Take your stand and keep your stand, and don't get corrupted by what is, going with the flow, yeah, but not betraying yourself. That's what I would say. And keep so much humor, because otherwise these times you cannot tolerate. And so when I hear all this news, as horrible as they are, but I start to laugh, because that's such a bad comedy on a bad theater, So let's hope they will play a better piece next time. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye, ladies.
Ladies.